So drug metabolism, cytochrome P450. So what's its main function? We know that it is mainly composed of two parts, and we mentioned that it's a monooxygenous system. So this whole system mainly catalyzes oxidizing or oxygenation of the other substrate. So it has some components which mainly plays oxidation reduction in between them and passes electron and oxygen through the other substrate. So it is mainly located in the smooth endoplasmic reticulum of the liver, and also some extrahepatic cells such as, if you can recall, the intestinal cells. Two protein components are present in this complex enzyme system, P450 enzyme system. One is the heme protein, which mainly the core is the iron. This heme protein is called the P450 because of its molecular weight. You can see it's around P450 Dalton. And also another part is the flavoprotein called NADPH, P450 reductase. So this mainly plays the reduction between this P450. So two parts, one is this heme protein, this is called the P450, and the other one is the flavoprotein, which mainly also called the NADPH P450 reductase. So this flavoprotein, we know that the NADP450 or flavoprotein reductase contains two components, two subcomponents. One is the flavin mononucleotide, another one is the flavin dinucleotide. So I mentioned that mainly this catalyzes the oxidation and reduction between substrate and between themselves. The P450 is the substrate and the oxygen binding site of the enzyme system, whereas the reductase serves as the electron carrier. So those mainly facilitate, like if you can recall the Krebs cycle, like what happens in the electron transport chain, the how the NADH and FADH mainly get reduced, and as a result there's a chemiosmotic gradient between the membrane of the mitochondria inner membrane. So those mainly facilitate the electron transport chain, those mainly, and also pumps the protons in the other membrane. So those mainly um, like facilitating the electrons from one chain to another chain, and mainly the reaction goes on and on. So there could be some polymorphism in the CYP450 gene system. We know that individual can vary their genetic system. So as a result of some variation, their drug profile or drug metabolic profile will be slightly different. So if two person has some variation in their CYP450 system, especially in the C3F4 system, CYP cytochrome P450 enzyme, particular enzyme CYP3F4, that is crucial because CYP3F4 mainly responsible for more than 30% of the drugs we know. So if the individual has, like, if we can classify the individual like fast metabolizer or the slow metabolizer, like fast metabolizer people can quickly metabolize drug, and slow metabolizers are slow in their drug metabolism. So this is mainly because of their liver enzyme, this cytochrome P450. So specific drugs are mainly slowly metabolized. So as a result, if we give them a standard dose, those dose will be higher for the slow metabolizer people. As a result, this might cause some toxicity. This could happen in vice versa if the people or the cohort of people is um, fast metabolizer of the particular drug. So in that case, we have to give more than a standard of the dose of the drug. Yes, I mentioned that patient variability in drug metabolism complicates dose level. So this mainly dose adjustment mainly requires in those fast metabolizer or slow metabolizer. So those mainly leads to different susceptibilities of drugs. So may affect activity of other drugs. So yeah, if your drug mainly induce these P450 systems or suppress the P450 system, this would likely cause this would likely interrupt or interfere the metabolism of other drugs if we take other drugs concomitantly. So this will result in drug-drug interactions. I mentioned that what are the percentage of prescription drugs, those mainly metabolized by this enzyme system. This enzyme system is very important for drug metabolism because all of the drug first they undergo phase 1 reaction, and most of the drugs undergo oxidation, reduction, this sorts of reaction. So I mentioned that Phr4, like this one is catalyzed more than 30% of the all of the prescribed drugs phase 1 reaction. The other large one is this CYP2D6. This one is also important. This is mainly 20%, and CYP1A2 and C19, 2B6, 2C9. Those also mainly catalyze some decent amount of prescribed drugs. So we know that is the hem portion, and this is the, if that is the molecular structure in this. This core is the hem portion, or the P450 you can say, and this one is the reductase, this surrounding NADH reductase, if you can recall. So more than 1000 isoforms, 100 in man. And this one is mainly carry out the phase 1 oxidation in liver. Membrane bound hem containing protein. Hem is the core, is the iron core. I mentioned this iron core. This is the active site. Cofactors NADPH, and oxygen, molecular oxygen is required. So this enzyme system mainly account for biotransformation of approximately 60% of the commonly prescribed drugs. So if a drug doesn't reach the liver, then are not metabolized by the system, but there are some other enzymes in the blood, like non-microsomal enzymes like esterase, amylase, different sort of enzyme in the blood, that those may also catalyze the drug's reaction. Those also can catalyze the drug reaction in the blood. So mainly this complex accounts for 60% of the prescribed drugs. And among those 60% of the prescribed drugs, this is mainly the classification, or you can say the how there is a distribution of the 60% of the drugs. Other 40% may or may not go through this system or the blood, or the other 40% may directly undergo excretory system. So those drugs might not require liver enzyme reactions, or those mainly require slight modification through the phase 2 systems. Or those drugs may be some level of water solubility, so they can directly go excretory systems. So that's mainly account for the other 40% of the prescribed drugs. And also one fruit that is important is grapefruit juice, because grapefruit juice contains some chemicals. Those mainly inhibit this great enzyme system, P450 system. So in that case, if you take some drugs, some crucial drugs, those mainly highly metabolized by this enzyme system, then you should not have this grapefruit juice. We will be seeing that in clinical pharmacy subject.